Hi everyone, we will start in a few minutes. Hi everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Shlomi Dola, and I'm a partner in the tax group of PwC Israel, managing the Global Incentive Services Department. Our department specializes in assisting and advising companies with all matters related to governmental incentives, grants, and tax benefits. We have a dedicated team in our department that specializes in assisting companies to receive grants for R&D initiatives. Today, we will be delivering the webinar on the Horizon Europe framework, which is just one of many incentive opportunities. And we will focus on opportunities relevant to startups and SMEs in Israel and Europe. Horizon Europe is the European Union's flagship program for promoting and supporting research and innovation. This is actually the largest program of its kind in the world. The current framework has been operating since 2021 and will continue until the end of 2027, with a total budget of about 100 billion euros. Participation in the EAC program presents a very attractive opportunity for innovative SMEs to receive significant funding support in the form of non-dilutive grants as well as equity. The last cutoffs for 2024 are in the second half of the calendar year, which will be discussed today. There are also several changes in the work plan that we will highlight as well. If for any reason you find that you are not yet at the right stage for the programs presented, you all are very welcome to contact us and we can help you find alternative programs that can be relevant for your company's stage or roadmap. We are delivering the webinar in English because we have some guests from Europe. And if there are any questions, we will be very happy to answer in the last part of the webinar. There is an option to write your questions in the chat. We are also recording the webinar and we will share the presentation and recording in our WhatsApp group. You can find a link to our WhatsApp group in the chat. So at this stage, I'm very happy to hand over to Shelly Diamant, the senior manager in our department, who together with our management team leads, among other things, the activity of Horizon Europe. Shelly, please.
Thank you, Shlomit, and good morning and good afternoon to some of you. I know there are some of you joining from the other side of the Mediterranean. So we're happy that so many of you, both locally and abroad, are able to join us for this webinar. The agenda today is to present Horizon Europe, as Shlomit said, and in particular the EIC program with the changes that actually came into effect in January of this year, the beginning of the year. I'll start by presenting a high-level overview of the Horizon Europe framework and what this framework has to offer, both to startup companies with breakthrough technologies, as well as SMEs, what they call small medium enterprises. After that, I'll delve a little deeper into the EIC program itself, which is Horizon's flagship program. I will talk quite a lot during the next hour about all the programs of the EIC, and especially the EIC Accelerator. Towards the end of our time together, I'll go over how PwC, the team, can help you navigate what can be quite a minefield, and steer you in the best direction for you and for your company. Finally, at the end, we'll try to leave some time for questions, at least 10 to 15 minutes for questions. As from previous experience, we know there can be quite a lot of questions. Before we proceed, a little bit about me. I'm a senior manager in PwC's incentives department, focusing on global grants. I've worked in this field for almost 10 years, predominantly on Horizon Europe. And over the last decade, I've helped various companies to win Horizon Europe grants spanning a wide range of industries, including biomed, agri-tech, food tech, cybersecurity, AI, basically everything tech related. When I'm not busy helping companies to win grants, most of my spare time is spent at the moment looking after my 6-year-old twin boys, who can be rather mischievous. Okay, so let's get into the introduction. The Horizon Europe framework is the EU's key funding program for innovative science and R&D, and it's the largest program for scientific excellence in Europe, and certainly one of the largest in the world. Currently, it is the largest in the world, with a budget of approximately 95 billion for the current program, which, as Shlomit said, runs from 2021 till 2027. The framework has been around in its various iterations for decades, okay, far longer than 2021. It has evolved over time to meet the demands of the ever-advancing technology and innovation, and also commercialization. The framework tackles various fields of technologies, ranging from biotech, agri-tech, food tech, cyber security, drones, quantum computing, even space technologies, and it covers both societal challenges and technological advances. It's important to understand that the Horizon Europe framework is comprised of many programs, which I'll go over on a very high level, and various calls for proposals also. They cover every sort of technology and its stage of development, as well as a variety of socioeconomic challenges impacting mostly Europe, but also the world. So I think that the most important thing to start with is, what is the EU actually looking for? What are they looking to fund in these types of grants? So let's begin with explaining that the European Union is known for its scientific and technological excellence and publishes many scientific publications. what they lack is the translation of excellent science into practical innovation, and thereafter also commercialization. So this lack or gap, if you like, translates into Horizon's vision. If you take one thing from this webinar, it's understanding what is the EU's ultimate goal. Okay, so the hint is in this slide, and I'll fill you in on some trade secrets now. Economically, the European Union aims to bring more unicorns to the European shores. Okay, that is the ultimate goal of the European Union. And why? Because it really, really bothers them that America, the US, has more unicorns than in Europe, and they're trying to shift the statistics in their favor. So this is the ultimate aim. The EU also aims to tackle sustainability goals and improve the lives of European citizens by implementing social impact. This translates into some specific goals, such as dealing with climate change, for instance, increasing European competitiveness and growth by encouraging collaborations and strengthening the impact of research and innovation in development, and ultimately also commercializing and monetizing excellent science for the benefit of mankind. So Horizon's framework is divided into three main pillars, as you can see here on the slide. Most of the tracks that exist within pillars 1 and 2 are designated for projects that encourage collaborations, what they call consortiums. Most of these projects take the form of calls for proposals that are published once or twice a year in the work program. These calls for proposals under various programs encourage consortiums of various sizes. Could be as small as 2 or 3 partners in a consortium to up to 20 partners in a consortium, and they encourage the consortiums to meet various challenges related to the EU goals that also tend to change from year to year. Part of the service that we provide is assistance in searching for strategic partners in Europe. This is important because without these partners, it is very, very, very difficult to win joint grants, the consortium grants. That's why I call these partners the European Union's mafia, and we know how to get you into this mafia. In Pillar 3 sits the EIC, the European Innovation Council, which I'll elaborate on now. Okay, so the EIC was established to essentially bridge the gap between the excellent science that exists in Europe at the moment and the monetization of the innovative science. The EIC therefore aims to identify, develop, and commercialize what they call groundbreaking technologies and companies which private investors are not willing to take a risk on at the moment because they see it as too high risk. This phase that many startups experience characterizes a period called a valley of death, which many of you might be familiar with. And mainly because there is a lot of risk involved, and many companies simply they just don't survive this stage, especially with companies and startups with high tech and deep tech technologies. And it's exactly here where the EIC actually wants to invest in order to boost and help these startups and SMEs, small medium enterprises, survive this very tricky phase of the valley of death. And essentially de-risk it. From my experience, companies that can show that they are at this stage and will not be able to survive without the EIC's support have a better chance of winning the grant. For this reason, also, it's not surprising that 70% of the EIC's budget is intended for small and medium businesses. So the EIC is positioned as a one-stop shop, if you like. It's aimed for researchers and entrepreneurs to create future markets and leverage private funding. for companies, entrepreneurs with high risk and high impact, and to cultivate more unicorns in Europe in order to outperform the US and Asia. And the financing programs of the EIC are structured in a way that they're either completely open, i.e. bottom up, without predefined topics, and completely open to any breakthrough technology that has the potential to cause a disruption in the market, or even market creating technologies, or what they call the top-down approach, which is based on challenges and a call for proposal based on specific challenges. These strategic challenges are related to the goals that are defined by the EU annually and up to 2050. Before I carry on, I just want to explain a little bit about the technology readiness levels. As this is an important concept that applies to pretty much all the programs under Horizon Europe. And the TRL scale, which I'll explain in a minute, is a scale that the EU uses to identify the level of technological maturity of each project. The TRL scale was originally developed by NASA in the 1970s for space exploration technologies. That's just a by the side anecdote. The TRLs measure the level of maturity of a technology throughout its research, throughout its development, and ultimately the deployment phase. They're based on a scale of 1 to 9, where 9 is the most mature technology and characterizes technologies in the stage of commercialization and scale-up. The European Commission defines the 9 levels in terms of technology maturity 1 to 4, which focuses on the R&D stages until there is actually a POC in the lab, which is what defines TRL 4. Thereafter, the demonstration and validation stages are typically defined by TRLs 5 to 7. And through to the end of 7, followed by the commercialization stages and scale up, which are TRLs 8 and 9. So this concept will actually carry us through to the rest of the webinar, where I will explain the different programs. The EIC is basically divided into 3 programs based on the level of the technology readiness, and each of these programs has a bottom-up approach and a top-down approach, and I'll explain this in further detail in a minute. Before I dive into each of the programs a little bit more in detail, I want to highlight some of the changes, the main important changes that were introduced into this year's work program for the EIC. The first one, the first major change is the introduction of the lump sum cost model, which has now been incorporated into most of the EIC programs, except the Pathfinder Open. This essentially means that the budget costs will be based on estimates according to the work packages that are defined in the work plan, and not on the basis of actual costs. The reason for this is because it should significantly ease the financial reporting requirements for beneficiaries, which is the phase that comes after they win the grant. Another fundamental change in stage 2 of the accelerator, the EIC accelerator, is that if one of the evaluators gives a no-go, but the other 2 evaluators give a go on all criteria, then there will be a consensus meeting between the 3 evaluators to decide if the candidate will go through to the interview stage or not. There are also new rules for resubmissions after after 3 rejections in general, basically the 3 strikes and you're out rule, meaning no matter at what stage of the application you're at, stage 1, 2, or 3, it will not be possible to submit again until the beginning of the next program in 2028, after the Horizon Europe will come to an end in 2027. There are some other changes. I won't go into detail here, but some of these changes include additional reward programs such as the Women Innovators Prize and European Innovation Capital Prize. Okay, so the EIC Pathfinder program is intended for initiatives and companies that have high-risk science and technologies that will later lead to high-risk breakthrough innovations. The program supports, therefore, early stages of development. So if you think back to the scale, it's activities from TRL 1 to 4, which are based on deep technological research. The total indicative budget for this program is 136 million euros, which is significant. And the program is aimed at small consortiums. Also, in rare cases, companies can apply a loan, in other words, without partners. However, from our experience, companies that apply a loan are less successful, so it is better to join as part of even a small consortium. Grants between 3 and 4 million euros can be requested, and the EU finances 100% of the costs. The final deadline for 2024 is in October, which is a top-down call related to the challenges presented in the slide. And these challenges relate to specific goals that the EU has defined for 2050. The EIC transition is designed to verify and to demonstrate a technology in a relevant environment for application and also to develop market readiness. These applications are limited to proposals built on the results of other programs, such as the Pathfinder, which was in the previous slide. And the main changes in this year's program are that the EU has opened up eligibility for results from other programs. In other words, not only from the ERC POC program or Pathfinder, but also from the Horizon 2020 challenges, which was the program that preceded Horizon Europe, and calls for proposals from Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe. Another change this year is that there is only an open call, and the program covers TRLs 4 to 5 or 6. Proposals can be submitted alone or as part of a small consortium, and a grant of up to 2.5 million euros can be requested in this program. There's only one cutoff date for this year, and it's in September, the 18th of September. Okay, now we move on to the EIC Accelerator, and this is actually the EIC's flagship program that supports later stages of technological development as well as scale up. Therefore, the technology must be tested and validated in a relevant environment, which falls outside of the laboratory. So in other words, at least TRL 5, if you think back to the scale, 5 or 6, or even higher, could be 7. And the aim of the project is to get to TRL 8 or 9. In this program, a company can submit a loan without partners. In the EIC Accelerator, the EU is looking to support companies where the EIC funding will basically act as a catalyst and encourage other investors. The program focuses on innovations based on technological breakthroughs, deep tech, where significant funding is required over a period of time before it's possible to generate return on investment, ROI. Therefore, the EIC support is referred to as a patient investment. The EIC Accelerator budget has two components. One is the grant and the other is the investment component. In the grant component, a candidate can request up to 2.5 million euros in grant funding, which represents 70% of the total budget, which means the company has to fund the remaining 30% in matching funds. The project usually runs for 24 months, although 18-month projects are also acceptable, depending on the company's specific timelines. In the equity component or blended finance, you can request an investment or quasi-equity, quasi-investment, which is usually paid as a convertible loan, and you can request up to 15 million euros. It's important to state here that the EU does not intend to take control over the company. Therefore, they do not intend to take more than 25% shares on the equity component. They don't want the voting rights. That's not what they're in it for. And here again, the principle of patient investment is reflected in a ROI of 7 to 10 years. This year, the EIC removed the grant first component, and now there is only the grant or the blended or only investment. So you might be asking yourselves at this stage, which funding component should you apply for? The answer really depends on the stage of development that you're in and why you need the money. If you're in a relatively early stage of development, for example, TRL 5 or 6, and you have the ability to fund the 30% matching without investment from the EU, then it's better to submit for the grant only. If you're in a more advanced stage of development and you're approaching commercialization, which means that in the next 2 years or so, you plan to be in the market. It's slightly different for biotech companies. They do give a longer runway for commercialization. But if you are at more advanced stages from TRL 6, 7, or even 8, then you can apply for the blended finance. If you're a small mid-cap company, which means that you have between 250 and 500 employees, and in the stage of scale up or TRL 8 or 9, then you can submit for equity only. You won't be eligible for the blended or the grant only. There is a 3-stage evaluation process to the EIC Accelerator, which I will explain in more detail. The first stage is considered a screening stage to ensure that you meet the overall terms and conditions of the program, and if the program is a good fit for the company. The stage is relatively short, does not require investment, significant investment at least, in time and resources, and it can be submitted at any given time. This stage consists of a written application of up to 12 pages with an investor pitch presentation also that is uploaded to a portal as an annex. As well as the presentation is 10 slides, and you also need to submit a short video about the company where up to 3 team members can need to present on the video, and the video is up to 3 minutes. So that's stage 1. The evaluation process of at stage 1 works as follows. After you submit the first stage in the funding and tenders program, the portal, the entire application is actually examined by 4 independent evaluators who review the application independently. This year, there is a new evaluation criteria that evaluates not only the excellence of the technology, but also the excellence of the company itself. So this criteria checks whether the company has a clear vision and a clear strategy, especially a strategy for Europe, as well as partnerships to help in the company's growth trajectory. If 3 of the 4 evaluators give a go, then you advance to the second stage. And another change this year is that the stage 1 evaluation is actually more stringent than it used to be, whereby you need to get 3 goes out of the 4. Previously, you only needed to get 2. This means that it is going to be more difficult to pass the first stage. If you don't pass the first stage, meaning you get 2 out of 4 no-goes, then you can submit again. It usually takes 4 to 6 weeks to get answers, but sometimes we do see delays. It could be up to 9 weeks. The stage 2 is the most complex and also the most difficult stage to pass. In the second step, you have to submit a complete application of up to 50 pages that includes a very detailed business plan with a clear strategy for Europe, along with a detailed work plan and budget, where you present both the grant component and, if you are requesting blended, then also the equity component. If you decide to apply for blended finance, then the work plan should include commercialization and scale-up activities. The application includes various appendices also, and there is another change here this year that you have to also submit a video at this stage, but you can submit the same video that was submitted in the first stage. This stage has deadlines, so in other words, there are cutoff dates, and the last cutoff for this year is October, the 3rd of October this year. The stage 2 is evaluated by 3 independent experts. If 3 give a go, then you advance to the 3rd and final stage. If one evaluator gives a no-go and the other 2 give a go on all criteria and sub-criteria, then the application goes to a consensus meeting. This is new for this year. It's only been introduced at the beginning of 2024. In my opinion, it's a very welcome change. The evaluators finally get to discuss, whereby previously they reviewed everything independently. So if there is a discrepancy, that they actually get to discuss and ultimately decide together, reach a consensus, whether the application goes through to the 3rd stage or whether it is rejected. If it's rejected, then it can be resubmitted. Again, up to 3 times, you have a chance to resubmit. It generally takes 4 to 9 weeks to get results on this stage. The 3rd stage is the final stage of this process. You have to go through a panel interview, meaning if you got a go on your stage 2, you have to go through the 3rd and final stage, which is a panel interview with the EIC, where 3 senior representatives of the company, obviously including the CEO, have to present the pitch and the investor pitch, and go through a question and answer session with panelists from the EU. So it's just like a potential a meeting with the potential investors, and it's important to treat it as such. This year, the interviews are back to being held physically in Brussels. They used to be on Zoom when Corona started. If some of you still remember Corona at all, and now they're back to being physically located in Brussels. The interviews for the October cutoff, which is the last cutoff of 2024, will actually be held in January of 2025. The process of the third stage evaluation process, there will be up to 6 evaluators who are called jury members. In the EIC terms, probably because they decide your fate, or at least the fate of your company. So most of these jury members will be from business, financial, or VC background, and it's important to address them as such, and obviously tweak the presentation to meet that type of target audience. If the evaluators decide your proposal is a go, then they will inform you that you have won, and the process will move to the preparation of a grant agreement for the grant component. And in parallel, we'll run a due diligence process and negotiation process with the EIC fund that manages the equity component. If the evaluators decide that your proposal is a no-go, then you will receive a rejection with or without a seal of excellence, which is a type of certificate of excellence for your project, and it is highly recognized amongst the EU. And you may also, depending on whether you've reached your 3 strikes yet, you may be able to resubmit at the stage 2 if you don't pass this stage. Results are typically in 4 to 6 weeks after the stage. The challenges for the EIC Accelerator have been identified in areas where breakthrough technologies or game-changing innovations developed by startups or SMEs can have a major impact on EU objectives. So in 2024, the challenges that have been identified include net zero industry, critical raw materials, Repower EU, the Health Emergency Response Authority, the Draft AI Act, and the CHIPS Act. Next year, new challenges will be defined in the new work program. So how can PwC assist in the process? So we actually guide you throughout the entire process, which includes strategic support at the beginning of the process to build the strongest possible business case and really set out the story that we want to present to the EIC. We also take a very hands-on approach in the writing of applications, also market research and building the work plan and the budget. We have access to huge repositories of market research for various sectors that substantially augment the business plan, especially in the second stage where a very detailed business plan is required. And in the third stage, we thoroughly prepare you for the interviews, which includes simulation sessions, both with ourselves and our team, as well as external evaluators who are themselves jury members and actually sit in Brussels on the panels. After you win, we further support the administrative management of the project and reporting to the EU, which forms part of the project management requirements by the EIC. So we have a dedicated team from a mix of technological and business backgrounds. These are presented here are Shlomit, who spoke before. She's the partner and leads the team, and the managers of the team. But besides the managers, we have a full complement of team members who have at least a master's degree. All of them have at least a master's degree, and some even have doctorates in a variety of fields. So we're happy to take your questions at this point. I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay. I don't know how much it. Okay. All right. So I see that there are several questions. Which technology? Okay, so I'll run through some of the questions. Which technological readiness level is the best one for maximizing the chances for success? Should I wait to have more robust results and performance validation, or it can be too late? So again, I think this very much relates to the stage of development that the company is at. You need to be at least a TRL 5, which means that you have some sort of initial proof, either proof of concept, it can be a prototype, or it can be an initial proof that the technology itself works, okay, but not just at the level of the lab, that it works in an environment that closely simulates what the environment will ultimately be. Okay, so it needs to be at least at the TRL 5, and it needs to also reflect accurately the TRL that you choose, reflect accurately really the description of the development stage that the technology is at. If that's the case, you can apply for TRL 5. If it's 6 or 7, I would think that TRL 8 is still acceptable, but if you're beyond TRL 8, which means that you're already commercial, it might be a little bit too late, depending on what you present in the project. You could present, for instance, significant scale up to get from TRL 8 to 9. That would still be acceptable. But anything beyond that, and certainly TRL 9 would be, I would say, would be too late. I hope that answers the question. Can you give examples of high impact products? Yes, again, it really depends on the industry and the technology, but the secret sauce, if you like, for the EIC is really breakthrough technologies. Okay, so technologies that don't necessarily just show incremental growth in a particular market or potential for incremental growth, but rather really market disruption. Okay, so for instance, things like examples could be ChatGPT, for instance, was a real disruption to the market. Okay, so that would be considered a breakthrough technology. I'm not saying that necessarily ChatGPT would have been a good candidate for the EIC for other reasons, but that is an example of breakthrough technologies as opposed to incremental growth. I hope that answers the question. Can deployment of the project be only in Israel? No, it can be in Israel. It can also be in any of the EU member states or other associated countries. And there are several associated countries. There's a list of 12 of them at the moment. So it can be in any one of those countries. There can also be collaborations that are outside the EU member states and associated countries. For instance, the US, Canada, they can be, although it shouldn't be the focus of the project, but certainly partners from other countries can also be included. Okay, which business activities are the optimal ones for the project? Again, this very much depends on the TRL that the company is sitting at, but usually it's some kind of hybrid between activities that are still R&D related. For the EIC Accelerator, the R&D type of activities should be more geared towards completing the product or the development of the product, rather than the earlier TRLs, which define really the POC, the proof of concept, and basically developing a product from scratch. Okay, those are not the kind of technology or business activities that they're looking to fund. In terms of the actual business activities, is anything that will lead the company towards commercialization or scale up. Okay, so anything such as, for instance, doing pilots, doing trials, receiving regulatory approval for the product. All of those are considered commercialization business activities. If the company is already selling the product, then scale-up activities are certainly also relevant. Those are the type of activities they want to fund, along with also R&D type of activities such as added features and integration of the technology into certain environments. Those are all valid activities. Can I ask for more than 24 months for the project? You can ask for 24 months for the project, but the latter part, so in other words, anything falling out of the 24 months will fall into the equity part of the project. And so if it's a project of more than 24 months, then the best route to go would be the blended finance, where you can request beyond the grant part of the project. My main market is the US. Will that make me irrelevant for this grant? I don't want to say it will make you irrelevant for the grant, but you do need to show a very clear strategic focus on Europe as well. So if your main market is the US, but you plan to expand also to Europe, and that has become a focus of your strategy, then yes. But if it's only in the US, and your main market is where you plan to focus, and that is the US, then yes, it's less relevant for these particular grants. I do want to see a very clear go-to-market strategy for Europe. Okay, there's one on the Pathfinder. Do I need to establish new collaborations, meaning new partnerships for the submission, or can I leverage current ones? You can leverage current ones. If they fall within one of the EU member states or other associated countries, you can. Obviously, provided your partners or potential partners are willing to apply for a joint program with a joint project with you. Okay, and the final questions. Consortia, what would the implications of being the consortium coordinator? The consortium coordinator, they basically need to coordinate and communicate and also project manage the entire consortium project for the duration of the project. Consortium projects can be, depending on what call for proposal it is, it can be anywhere from 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and that would be the responsibility of the coordinator to manage. Okay, so any reporting that needs to be done with the EU, that needs to be coordinated by the consortium coordinator. They're also responsible for receiving the budget and then allocating the budget to each of the partners in the consortium, and obviously managing the coordination relationship with all the partners. It's quite a big responsibility to be the coordinator. Will you send out the presentation? Yes, we will send out the presentation as well as the recording. Are there any other questions? So if not, thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.